I just wanted to say welcome. I'm glad you guys all could come out. And I also wanted to just thank, it's nice to see a big partnership. I wish there was a lot more people here, but it's still nice that we had a really nice partnership of a lot of people, the prosecutor's office, the school, and a lot of other people to make this happen. So thank you very much for everybody that, helped us out. I just want to let you know that Joe, right here, Faldetta, and I will be here afterwards. If there's something that, you want to talk about or have a special need or a counseling need or something, you can talk to us and we can try and get you situated. I also wanted to point out Mr. Tabano.
Back here.
Okay. He's your Ocean City point guy. So if you need somebody at the school and you need somebody to talk to, wave to so everybody can see your smiling face. So anyhow, how this all came about was we did a survey in the schools. We did 7th, 9th, and 11th graders. It was in 2013 at the end of the school year. And what we did was we did a survey, and then we went to each school and we talked about the results that we had gotten. And a lot of the feedback that we got was maybe that we need to come out to the schools and do a little bit more in talking to parents and letting them know, because it seemed like a lot of the information that came back to us that the parents didn't know a lot about prescription drugs and it's linked to heroin. So that's why we're here today, and I'm going to introduce Cape May County Prosecutor Robert Taylor.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here tonight. I'm sorry there's not more parents out here because this is a message that parents need to hear. Today, I'm proud to announce that we had a good turnout at the school, and I would certainly want to thank the Ocean City School System, the superintendent and the school board for allowing us to use the facilities. We had a packed house, I guess today, with all the high school students and the middle school students. I think there was over 1,400 students from the high school that saw this presentation and 200 from the middle school. So it's very important that they see this presentation as well. I have a few people I have to thank. I have to first thank Cape Assist and Kim. We always work with them in a variety of messages, including cyberbullying, bullying, domestic violence, abuses of all different kinds. So I want to thank Kim and Cape Assist. I want to thank the members of the Pride Committee. Dan's here tonight from the Seattle School Board, who works with us and is partially responsible for getting this program going. I want to thank Chief Callahan and the Ocean City Police Department for their help in getting the program going. And let me give you a few other statistics that I think are frightening, which shows why we need to do this program, and we will do this program in all the high schools and middle schools in the county before the end of the year. In 2014, there were 121 overdoses in Cape May County. 20 of them were fatal. Of those overdoses, 81 were males, 40 were females. Police departments in Cape May County last year, and I think Cape May County was the second county or the third county in the state that deployed Narcan to reverse the overdose effects of opiates or heroin. We use money from the forfeiture monies that we collect from drug dealers when we seize their property to fund the Narcan program. 13 Narcan saves is a very important number. Without the police department deploying and using Narcan, that might have been 13 more fatalities here in Cape May County. So far in 2015, we've already had 3 overdoses, 1 fatal. Narcan has been deployed 2 times. And I think last evening, Narcan was deployed in Lower Township on an overdose. In 2014 in Ocean City and Upper Township, there were 9 overdoses and 4 of them were fatal. This is a countywide program that we're going to use and get to all the schools. So please, to the extent you can, get the word out to your relatives. What's important is they understand what's going on with heroin and opiates and all the pills that are out there on the street today. So without further ado, let me introduce Ed Shim, who's our assistant prosecutor at the Cape May County Prosecutor's Office. Ed has unique credentials. He's not only an assistant prosecutor, but he's also a licensed New Jersey pharmacist. So when he handles the drug court and tries to rehabilitate the people that are suffering from drug addiction and things of that nature, he really knows what he's talking about when he hears what they're using and the kind of drugs they're using. Joe Landis is the head of our narcotics task force. He does a great job. Some of you may have heard last year we had significant drug bust in the county. We seized over 10,000 individually wrapped bags of heroin, and in conjunction with the DEA, the FBI, Homeland Security, and other agencies, we were able to interdict 15 kilos, was it, Joe, or 10 kilos? 15 kilos? 15 kilos of heroin that was not destined for Cape May County, luckily, but we were able to seize it along with the help of those other federal agencies. So that's what's going on in the United States. The heroin's coming in from Mexico, it's coming in from the cartel, and it's being distributed throughout the United States. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Ed Shim. Ed.
Thank you, Prosecutor. Again, my name is Ed Shim. I am from Cape May County. I moved down here in 1973, 74, and after going to pharmacy school and going to law school, I returned. And one of the things that I say to the kids when I speak to them is, we as this generation have been part of leaving, in some ways, a very dangerous world for kids when it comes to drugs. What was available to many of us when we were younger, alcohol and just marijuana, these kids are really facing a different environment altogether, and as parents, it is very important that you are aware of what they are facing and that you can have meaningful conversations. Part of what we have is the program that we're going to show to you, what we showed to the students that are out there in Cape May County. Turn to Joe.
Yeah, I just want to say before we get started real quick, we had the opportunity to do these presentations 3 times. We split the high school in half. It was about 700, I guess, in each one, and then the intermediate school. By far, it was probably the best presentation as far as kids paying attention and being receptive to what we were saying. I saw a lot of looks on kids' faces that you see that look like, wow, like there's a problem somewhere, maybe not with them, but they know somebody, and I really think we got through to them. You know, I am a little bit disappointed that we don't have as many parents here tonight, and I want to thank you for coming, that you did, because to me, you know, we can preach to the kids all day long, and as I told them today, you know, as blunt as I can be, I said, listen, you're going to leave here today, I said, and you're going to go home and you're going to say, oh yeah, this detective from the prosecutor's office and this prosecutor talked to us, and probably forget about a lot of what we told you. I said, but think about what you're going to do before you do it, and do your own research. You all have smartphones. Log on to some of the websites and look at what happens to kids your age and see what they look like and see how they're telling you not to go down that road, and that's what's going to affect them. And by you being here, you're the one that's really going to have the impact on your kids. All right? You have to tell them at home the dangers of drugs. Have them ask them to ask you questions. I told them all to go home and ask you questions. So hopefully some of them will ask you, if you do have kids, if you came tonight with them or not, but that's what we need. We need you guys to be educated so that when they ask you, you can tell them. And that's what we're going to do tonight. We're going to explain to you the dangers of these drugs, why they're dangerous, and some of the reasons why it could be affecting you and your family and you don't even realize it because they're in your homes. So when we talk about heroin, which is the main drug of choice in Cape May County right now, there's a lot of other drugs being used, but that is the predominant drug that people have turned to. However, nobody just starts off just using heroin. All right, there's a gradual chain of events that happen. And typically, you would use marijuana. That was the old gateway drug, and it still is a gateway drug. But like I told the kids today, I said, if I asked you all to go out and get me a bag of marijuana today and you had an hour to do it, I would hope, and I think that most of them couldn't do it because they have to go find somebody that's selling it illegally. However, if I told them you have an hour to go out and get me one prescription medication or a controlled dangerous substance, every single one of them could do it. And they could all do it in an hour, because all they have to do is go home to their house or your grandmother's or grandfather's or aunt or uncle, because everybody stores medicine that they don't need. And the reason why that is because we live in a medicated world today. It's no secret that everybody goes to the doctor for everything and they give you medicine for everything. We're the only country that advertises medication on national television. It's a problem. We don't see it as a problem, but it is a problem. So now prescription drugs have become that new gateway drug, or one of the leading gateway drugs, because of the availability. And some of them, the more prevalent ones that you need to be worried about, is equivalent to legal heroin. OXYCODONE, the things that they prescribe for pain, and Percocet, the normal things that we talk about every day, like they're just candy, like, oh yeah, I got Percocets for my leg, or I got Vicodin for my back. That's legal heroin. It's heroin. It produces the same effects, except it was just made in a factory under controlled settings by scientists who designed it to be a time release for people who need it. But when you abuse it, and kids abuse it, and they don't realize it because they see it in your cabinets or their friend's cabinet, their mentality is, if it's in the cabinet, it's not going to hurt me. If my mom takes it every night, it's not going to hurt me. If my brother's taking it, it can't be that bad. But what happens is they take it, and then the effects wear off, and they take it again, and eventually it doesn't work anymore. But now the addiction started, and they need something stronger, and then it leads to heroin. And that's the cycle, and we're going to talk more about these drugs that you need to be conscious of and things of that nature.
They said one hit wouldn't hurt. One hit wouldn't hurt. They lied.
Here are a list of drugs that we as law enforcement are concerned about the illegal use. Now, you're going to see things on there that are legally prescribed, and they have valid, legitimate medical purposes. The concern for us as law enforcement and as parents is that it somehow trickles down and gets in the hands of kids. One of the things I immediately say is Ritalin. That is a drug that is used for children who have attention deficit. There's nothing wrong with that. They need that. The problem is what happens when they then don't take it and then it gets out of their control. And I try to warn kids that, like Ritalin, there's Adderall and there's Concerta. When they go to college, some people are going to have it, and you're going to be possibly tempted to take it. You need to be aware that it is a very dangerous stimulant. The next drug is Valium, Klonopin, and Xanax. Again, many individuals have anxiety and they take Xanax, and that's appropriate. It's necessary. But when you are prescribed it, as I told the group last week, you need to count your medication. You need to know where they are, and you need to be responsible for them. In any kind of battle, in any kind of war, everybody has a responsibility. And as a parent, if you have these drugs or you know somebody in your family that does, you are now responsible. You are at that level where you can control it. You need to know if a guest has come into your house and has taken those pills. So it's important that you count them and keep track of them. That child who you saw in the video who passed away from one hit. Now, that may not have happened years ago, but now with fentanyl, which is a synthetic opium-type medication, 80 times more powerful than morphine. It's now, we have a name for it as law enforcement, ultra-dangerous mixtures, where one hit can kill you. Methadone, I'm sure all of you have heard about it. It is used to help heroin addicts get off of heroin, try to get them to stop using it, because it is very difficult for some of them. We have a meth clinic in Cape May County, and I know that there is one in Summers Point. Again, appropriate and necessary, but sometimes that gets out into the street. Now, the next four up there, OxyContin, roxicodone, Percocet, and Vicodin, they are all opium-type mixtures. The one that is most dangerous would be the top three. They contain a drug called oxycodone. Again, a very important pain medication after surgery. You have cancer, you need it. You are in horrible pain, and it is appropriate. Problem is that drug users are seeking that, because that is a pill form of heroin. It's about as close as you can get, and people are looking for it. In fact, I was telling a story that we had a case where somebody staged a burglary in one town in our county to mask them stealing pain medication. These are the extremes that people go to get it. And you don't know who's coming into your house, who is seeking it. So again, if you have medication, talk to your friends, tell them. We need to be responsible as parents.
And also, real quick, just so you know, and I apologize because I just went through here and I updated the slide, and one of the pictures didn't save when I tried to save it so I could show you. Understand, kids are smart. And I know there's a few kids in here too, but understand what I'm telling you and your parents, that kids now, they look up a lot of things, and they want everything quick. They want the fast thing, the better thing, the quicker thing. So what they're doing is they're finding ways around, finding ways around to beat the system of mechanisms that the corporations built into some of these pills, like these time-release pills such as OxyContin, which is super strong. They build mechanisms in there so that when you swallow it, there's a time release. Over time, it'll release into your body. But they find ways around that by crushing it up, and then they beat the time release because now it's broken up and it goes into your system much quicker. They'll smoke it. And if you see things laying around your house, and there was a picture I had but it didn't save, it's a piece of tin foil. And you can actually burn an OxyContin pill and smoke it. And if you do that and you inhale the fumes from that pill, it is an instantaneous high, like a deadly high. But the kids don't understand that because they read articles about other kids who post it and they try it. So if you see things like that, piece of tin foil, what it looks like a burn mark on it, and you'll tell that it'll look like a pill was sliding down it, that's what they're doing. And those are the things that you need to look out for. Because one hit of something of that extreme can kill you. And they don't get that message when they look it up. Here's another thing. This is where they're doing. They're stealing these pills, and that's why we're going to keep beating that message into you about these pills. You got to get them out of your house. They go to a friend's grandma, like we talked about, grandpa, grandma, uncle. They take the prescriptions, and then not only are they taking those pills, but they're combining them. And again, we live in a medicated world. You're all adults except for a few kids in here. If you watch TV at nighttime or during the day, every commercial that has to do with medication, it ends with, if you're taking this, don't take this, 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 and this. Because if you do, you might experience what they're saying is a heart attack or death. But kids don't understand that. So they're just taking random pills at random time and mixing them together, and then it causes an even deadlier and more serious problem.
neck be late again.
Sean.
Sean?
They said prescription painkillers were totally safe. They lied.
So this is methadone. It's available as an injectable. It's available as a pill. Most of the clinics will give out the liquid. But it is available, and that's what it looks like.
And you should know this, we're putting these up here because these, again, are some of the prevalent ones that we see on the street. And the reason why is because these are the ones that the drug dealers are selling. Because after they take these for a while, they need something stronger, and they need to turn to heroin. So they, in turn, try to sell these to users who don't use as that beginner drug. So they'll get that methadone, and they'll sell that to go out and buy stronger stuff. But they're going to tell the kids that the methadone's not going to hurt you. They just gave it to me at a clinic. It can't be that bad, but the kids are then going to become addicted to it.
And this is probably the drug that concerns us the most in combination with heroin. This is fentanyl. It was a drug designed for people at end-stage cancer, where they had extreme pain. They could no longer swallow pills, so they developed a lollipop and patches so that we can make people comfortable. It has now made its way, not through our country. It appears that drug dealers are making it on their own, and we really don't know how they're doing it, because production of this is controlled in this country. This is 80 to 100 times more powerful than morphine. And what they're doing is they're adding it to heroin. And when somebody who thinks they're getting a regular bag of heroin has fentanyl mixed in and they use the regular amount, they can 80 times more than what they thought they were going to get, and they're going to overdose. Joe will tell you, this is skin soluble. So if you were to touch a bag, you would get absorption through and could possibly get high. This is very, very dangerous, and if somebody in the family is on it, absolutely you need to watch it. And this is the drug. This is the drug that I've often said scares me the most. I have 4 children, and my biggest fear is that one of them will somehow become addicted to this drug. And if you do, it is legalized heroin in the sense that it is that strong. And if your child becomes addicted, to get off of it, it is a tremendous struggle, because the drug causes physical addiction. It doesn't care what economic class you're from. It doesn't care who you are. The drug does what it does, and it creates changes in your body that will result in you needing more and more and more. And you saw that young man go into the medicine cabinet. You develop a tolerance, and you have to take more and more. And that's when you can overdose. And then when they can't get any more pills, there's the heroin dealer ready to provide it at a cheaper rate. And now we have a real problem.
So this is what you can do to help solve a little bit of this problem. There was programs back in the day where we would collect it twice a year, but those programs have now ceased. They stopped. But it doesn't mean we're going to stop collecting drugs. So you can go at any time to any police department, and they should not turn you away. I talked to the Ocean City Police Department, as of today, and you can walk in there at any time with any medication you want from your house or that you find. Tell them that it just needs to be disposed of. They won't ask you any questions. They're going to take the medicine from you, and they're going to submit it to be destroyed. If for some strange reason you go to a police department and there's nobody there, which that should never happen, or somebody says, I don't know, can you come back later? You can come to my office. Come to the prosecutor's office, and we'll take it. But police departments will now collect that medicine for you, no questions asked, and they'll destroy it the proper way. And that way we can get it out of the medicine cabinets where it's accessible to your kids and other family members, not even kids. People who are maybe recovering addicts, who all it takes is one little thing to trigger it. And I tell this story to the kids today. I got called to the hospital several months ago. None of my detectives were working, so I went over myself. I get there because they say we have a guy in here who has drugs and we need you to come pick him up. Okay, that's fine. I go over. Mentally, I'm thinking I'm going to walk in and I'm going to find some young kid, an addict who I know from working the streets, and, you know, it's going to be the normal routine. I go into the room. Where's the guy at, ma'am? Over there in that room. I go over, I open the curtain up, and it's some pretty big guy, 63-year-old male, looks perfectly fine to me, and I'm like, this can't be the right guy. I go back out, I tell the nurse, she says, no, that's him. He got it, it's right here, it's a bundle of heroin. So I go back in and I talk to him. He's a retired special ed teacher from Philadelphia. He's 63, he's been clean for 33 years, hasn't touched in 33 years, has a house in Cape May, comes down with 2 buddies, just for the weekend to hang out, you know, to get away and vent. Friend goes in the bathroom, says, can I use your bathroom? He says, yeah. He goes and checks on him. He opens the door and his friend is shooting a bag of heroin in his bathroom. He said that trigger alone of seeing that action made him remember what it felt like, and he went out that night and bought a bundle of heroin and overdosed after 33 years of being clean. So that's why it can be bad for someone, if you have someone recovering in your house, to just see those pills sitting there. And that temptation is always there. The saying is always going to be there. Once an addict, always an addict, even if you're recovered, because there's always that chance that you're going to go back. In 2013, Cape May County alone, just in our county, we collected 448 pounds. I'm confident, 100% confident to tell you that I attribute that to 1% of our population in Cape May County turning in medication. That's not even anywhere close to where we could be. If everybody in Cape May County dumped their medication, that would be in the thousands and hundreds of thousands of pounds. I would bet money on that. The next time we did it, 304 pounds. And I asked the police departments, you have people coming in? And they say, yeah, we have a couple people once in a while just come in, that's about it. That's why I say 1%. So think about all the people, if you did get rid of it, how many lives you could save, and we can get the medicine, you know, disposed of it the proper way. So remember, you can always bring it to my office if you can't get a hold of somebody, but like I said, Ocean City already said that they would gladly take it and destroy it. So now we're going to move on to heroin, because what happens is you get past that point of the prescription drugs. Eventually, like I said, your body becomes immune to it, and those pills are only designed to be a certain strength. They have milligram strength, 20, 30, 60, 80, whatever it is, 15. So the maximum high you're going to get is only so much that's going to allow you to take that pain away. But once you become an addict, you need more. You want the stronger and stronger and stronger. So you graduate to heroin.
They said heroin would be the best high I ever had.
Sweetheart? Sweetie? Listen to me!
They said heroin would be the best high I ever had. They lied.
That video shows you not only what the user goes through, but what we see, and that is the damage that it causes to the family and just society in general. Heroin addiction just doesn't affect the person themselves. These people have to get the drug, and they steal, they commit robberies, they do those things, so we all suffer. And routinely, I see the family members when I'm handling drug court, and I make it a practice. Go up, shake the hand, and send my condolences to the family, because I know that they are suffering. because they have somebody in their family who has a heroin addiction. And to get these people to stop the drug, it is a struggle. It is a terrible journey that I don't wish upon anybody. So I do feel empathy for them. I do my job, but they are victims, as we all are, when you have somebody who is addicted to heroin and they are part of your family. I get the opportunity because I run drug court. When they apply for drug court, they get evaluated. And they talk to a clinician who talks to them, and we get an honest assessment to the best of our ability of their drug use. And it is not uncommon, and I've gotten used to it, to read how 10-year-olds are drinking, smoking marijuana, and taking pills. I see them at their worst when they're in their 20s, but it's all there. One of the things that I say about marijuana is not everybody who smokes marijuana becomes a heroin addict, but everybody who is a heroin addict smoked marijuana. So those two things are always true. And for us to not be mindful of young kids, we're missing the boat. Kids are growing up faster. The world moves very quickly for them. And I'm looking out at this family here, and I commend you for being here tonight. Who wants to come out on a Thursday night? It's cold out. You want to stay home. But you're here. And I thank you for coming here and bringing your son, because it is that communication that is important in order to protect your children from what they are going to face, because we were all young once. Nobody wants to be ostracized. Nobody wants to be called names for not doing things, and these kids are feeling the pressure. And you have to do your best to try to get them to agree with you that they won't. And you have to keep that communication going. So it is not uncommon for kids to start at 12, be introduced to it through friends, and then they're in the danger zone where they could become heroin addicts. And like it says, people are going to approach them and say that it is cool. I listen to songs now. I tell the young kids, I'm now the old guy. I used to be the young guy, but I'm the old guy. And I think of that song, New York by Jay-Z, and he talks about Ambien, a sleeping pill. Kids are bombarded through their art, music of drug use, and it is glorified, and we need to, as parents, tell them, hey, that's just an art form, but it's not what it, you need to tell them the truth. And so we need to protect them.
And we need you guys to also reiterate this to your kids, that these drug dealers are going to portray themselves as their friends, and they're going to tell them whatever they want to hear, that they're their friend, that this will make them cool, that if they do it, they're cool, that, you know, and some of their friends are going to tell them this, but you need to keep stressing that they need to make their own decisions. They need to think about what they're going to do before they take that one hit, take that one pill, or do whatever they're going to do for that first time, and think about their future, not think about what their friends think of them. Because the drug dealers, all that's on their mind is money. They don't care. And most drug dealers, I've spoken to a lot of drug dealers I locked up. I know drug dealers, they'll give it to them for free. They will give it to them for free the first time, because they know after they give it to them the first time, they're going to be hooked, and then they're going to be banging on their door all hours of the night trying to get another bag. So they need to make their own decisions and learn the facts before they jump into something.
And have your kids, whether you're grandparents, parents, whether you're an uncle, aunt, talk to your young high school students, make them make a promise to you. Who knows if it's going to hold true, but make them at least verbalize to you that they are making a promise to you that they won't use, so that when they're in that critical moment, maybe they'll remember that. I've had each one of my kids make that promise to me. And my hope is that they keep that promise. And that's all you can really do, is hope that they keep it. But take that step. Say, I care about you, and I want you to make that promise because I love you. And I think that might make the difference when they're in that critical moment where they have to make that decision of whether they're going to be called names or they're going to leave that party and call you.
These next couple of slides, we want to educate you on what heroin looks like, how it's packaged, what terminology to listen for when your kids are talking, or if you do monitor their phones like you should, or their internet with their usage and the things that they're writing on there, terminology that you should pay attention to. That, all four of those are heroin. They all produce the same high. They give you the same effect. They're the same exact drug. The only difference is whatever the person who manufactured it put into it and mixed up with it in order to just make the size of it bigger so that they can have much more to sell. That's all it is. And I tried to tell the kids today, you know, these guys aren't thinking about when they do that, okay, I'm going to put something in there that's not going to hurt anybody. They don't care. We've had people, I have guys tell me that they've actually put stuff and mixed their heroin up with rat poison because that was all they had at the time that looked like it was consistency, the same consistency, so they just chopped it up, put it in the bag, and sold it to somebody. And the crazy part is their mentality is if they die, if I sell her a bag of heroin, and everybody else in here is a heroin addict and she dies, that's good business for me. That's more money for me. Because all of you are going to come now look for me. Because you want that bag that she had. Because mentality, that your state of mind that you're in, you're saying, wow, that was some good stuff. I want to use that bag. And that's the mentality they have. If you hear dope, diesel, H, they're phrases that they refer to when they're talking about heroin. A lot of times what they will do, though, is they'll refer to it by the stamp on the bag. 99.9% of the time, heroin has a stamp on a bag. The bags, I'm going to show you in a minute, are typically a wax paper fold, can come in a couple different colors, and they'll have a grainy stamp on it. I've seen 2 or 3 stamps in my entire career that were like very neat and nice. The rest of them look like they were watermarked and they're running down the paper. They're sloppy. So you'll know it when you see it. That's what some bags look like. A lot of times you'll see them, they'll be double bagged. They'll have the wax paper fold inside of a plastic bag, or sometimes it'll just be like the wax paper fold down there, and it'll have a piece of Scotch tape around it to hold the bag shut. They do that because there's a very small amount. Heroin is very powerful. It's like 0.03 of a gram in a bag or less. It's like dust. And it gets you very, very high, intense high, with a little bit of drugs. This is a very common stamp that you will see in Cape May County right now. This is one of a few. I have another picture with the other ones on it, but this is one that you should really pay attention to. If you see this, it's bad. It's a bad news. All right? It's called White House. These are some other ones. There's one here, it's called Pitbull. And this one comes in a variety of different different symbols. There's a Pitbull head, and it just says Pitbull, or there's the whole dog on there. That's another one that we see a lot in this area. We see killer, overdose, and there's a bunch more. But basically, this is what the bags look like. If you see that someone in that area or wherever you're finding them, there's a problem going on. And if you find them in your house, then you should definitely contact somebody like the police department and seek help, because somebody is in a lot of trouble. Especially when we start talking about when they mix fentanyl with this with heroin.
And what this should show you is that these people, they're in the business. They're putting trademarks, names. They're in the business of selling it for money. They don't care about the misery, the destructions of families and lives. They're motivated by one thing: selling these products, because they take the time to actually stamp each little bag. And that goes to show you the depths of what these people are doing in terms of committing a crime. Now, when we get to this slide, I talk about the word euphoria, and I admit that when I was in high school, I probably didn't know what that word meant. And I tell young kids, I'm not going to lie to you. Opium, heroin makes you feel good. That's why people start to use it. The problem is that once you start, you're not going to care about anything else. Whatever you cared about before, you're not going to care about. When you use heroin, it is going to demand that you serve it. Your body, you as a being, are going to be a slave to that drug. I've often thought, as good as pain medication is, heroin is certainly something that we as human beings should never experience. Because if you do, you may want more. And at what price? It's clear with the cases that I see that there is no price where these people will not pay. I had a girl yesterday who would rather take 6 years of prison than go and get help. She just wanted to get out there and use. There was a father in there begging her to get treatment. Drug court did the right thing and refused to send her to prison. And force her to get help, but that is the mindset. And I'm sure if I bumped into that girl when she was 14 and she's in her 20s, she would have never have imagined that that is where she would be. And these people will tell you, you know what, I'm off it a couple of days, I got it figured out. I don't believe it. So that is what this drug will do. And it is very, very dangerous.
And this is what the drug dealers are doing when we talked about mixing it with fentanyl. They know people are going to die, so they'll put the stamps on the bags we were talking about to fit the product. So if people are dying, they'll change the stamp's name to rest in peace or lethal injection, because to them, it's almost like comedy. If people are dying, they think it's funny, it's going to make them more money, so why not let's market it that way? And just so you understand, if they mix it with fentanyl, which they don't know how much they're mixing it with, they're just putting it all in there together. They don't really care how much goes into the bag. They're just filling the bag to make money. So if it's 80 to 100 times stronger, that means if you shoot up a bag of heroin with fentanyl in it, it's the equivalent of shooting 80 bags at one time. And the drug user has no idea. But then the mentality of the other drug users are, I want that bag. I'll just shoot half the bag. So
Right,
you can see the vicious cycle.
Because that other person, they were just dumb. They used too much. Joe used too much. I'm going to get that stuff and I'm going to control it. That is the twisted mindset. The average person would stay away from anything that killed you, but they gravitate toward it. And this is what they do. Now, heroin can be smoked, it can be snorted, but eventually that way of using it doesn't satisfy. And then they do this. They cook it and they have to inject it into their bloodstream. These are the people that I see, heroin addicts who are injecting. They have these little kits with spoons. Is it a chore boy? Is a
Char boy.
Yeah, it is a metal type cleaning apparatus that they use. They filter it through. I mean, there is a system, and they are taught these things. It is a world that I wish nobody to ever become involved in. And this is the end result. When you are addicted, to get off of it, you have to go through withdrawal. Now, we as society have developed better ways of helping people through withdrawal, but we haven't been able to eliminate all of it. And this is what they try to avoid. At a certain point, heroin addicts are just trying to avoid this right here, the withdrawal. Joe has described it as somebody being in a room with several MMA fighters who are just beating you. I've been told it is like having the worst flu ever and multiplying it by 1,000, and it won't end for days.
This is your brain. And this is heroin. This is what happens to your brain after snorting heroin. And this is what your body goes through. Wait, it's not over yet. This is what your family goes through. And your friends and your mind. And your job. And your self-respect and your future. And your life. Any questions?
That's a very true video. In the state of New Jersey, if you are caught with illegal drugs, marijuana has a different classification, but cocaine, heroin, one bag, 1 grain of it, a trace amount, you can be subject to prison from 3 to 5 years. And most significantly, whatever career you hope for is now likely down the toilet.
Believe it or not, this slide right here today, I think, impacted the kids most of all. And the reason why is when we explain to them what's going to happen to them if they get caught, whether they're a drug dealer and they want to sell drugs or they want to use drugs, they're going to be arrested. This day and age, there is no more leniency because it's become such an issue and so many people dying that we are prosecuting. Even if they're juveniles, they're going to get prosecuted. And it doesn't matter if mom or dad or if that person I'm talking about is you. It doesn't matter if they're the star athlete. We don't care. You were using a drug or selling a drug that could kill somebody, and we're going to prosecute you. And you're not going to go to school. You're not going to get a good job. You're not going to ever make it in professional sports or athletes if that's what you think. Or if you're taking it to another level, and we went off this track a little bit about using sports enhancement drugs, no schools want that. And it really got through to them, I think, thinking about how drugs could affect their future and not even getting a driver's license so they can drive to McDonald's after they couldn't get a regular job just to apply at McDonald's because now they don't even have a license. So this slide really puts it into perspective what you can lose by going down that road of drug abuse. We're not going to talk much about treatments because we do have the pleasure of having Kim here from Cape Assist, and she's going to come talk after us. But these programs are unbelievable for kids and for families, for help. You can call them, and they will go above and beyond their way to help you. They will get you whatever you need or help you get in the right direction of resources that could help someone either get off an addiction, or even if they need other help for other things, they go above and beyond. So Kim's going to talk in a few minutes after we're done. But there are some other places out there also, Cape Counseling, Family Matters, which is down in Lower Township. And then the last thing we're going to talk about, which is a very important, is the Overdose Prevention Act.
The government has recognized that the most important thing is a life. And in 2012, our governor and our legislators enacted the Good Samaritan Law, overdose prevention. What it says is, if somebody is using drugs and a person overdoses, let's protect that person when they call for help. What we don't want is somebody saying, I don't want to call because I'm going to get in trouble. I have drugs on me, I was using with him. So the law is 2 parts. Protects the person that calls. The person has drugs, but he calls. Protects the person that they called for. It's very, very important that you know that and that you tell your kids, your neighbors, hey, I heard of this Good Samaritan law. Let's make sure our kids know that they will not get into legal trouble if they call for help when somebody is in danger. So it is a very important law, and I can tell you it has technical aspects. All laws do. But there's a directive from the Attorney General at the end of last year that the spirit of the law says we're going to not prosecute. And that is certainly what we are educating police officers. And with the young kids, I tell them, if somebody isn't following it, they call me, and we will help them. So we want to make sure that no child, no adult, no one dies for fear of getting prosecuted when they have a chance to help somebody. And we tell them, you stay. The protection is if you stay. So the question I get is, well, what if there's all 3 of us and one runs that way? Everybody's protected. If your goal is to get help for that person who's overdosed, we're going to protect you, not inclined to prosecute. Take the drugs, we're going to move on, and hopefully everybody's learned their lesson. But the goal is not to lose a life because somebody was afraid of getting prosecuted criminally.
And with that, we also have to stress, and I tried to tell the kids this today, that they wouldn't get prosecuted. Now, we would not charge them with the drugs that we found there once we show up, because they called for help, and that's the main focus. But I did tell them, and I need you, if you could reinforce this, something more could happen there, and that person could die. So that potentially could be evidence that we need to figure out if that person who sold them that drugs, or if that person is selling drugs to other people. So we don't want them to like try to hide drugs, throw the drugs down the trash or in the toilet, or discard something because they think they're doing something that they're gonna get in trouble if the drugs are there. I told them today, if we show up and there's a bag of marijuana or a bag of heroin on the table, that's fine. They're not gonna be charged with that. As long as they stay there and wait for help, then they're gonna be fine. And I also told them that if they think, like a lot of adults do this, and we tell them all the time not to, they drop somebody off on their front steps and knock on the door, and they think, okay, I left them there at their mom and dad's or their friend's house, then they'll bring them in and call somebody. If they do that and nobody hears a knock on the door, they're liable for them. So they're going to get charged. They need to stay there, don't discard anything, wait for the police and the ambulance, and then we'll take care of everything from there. All right, we are finished. This is our information, so feel free to leave. I'll leave it up for a minute. If you have any questions, you can hold them until Kim is done, and then we'll answer any questions you have, and we'll stick around as long as we have to. All right, so next I'm going to bring up Kim from Cape Assist, and she is going to talk to you.
So we see that there is a heroin epidemic hitting our county, but we're like, why are we here tonight? You know, we're hearing that it's adults. I don't think my kids are using heroin. My kids aren't even using pills. So why am I here? Well, you know, why do I have to be here? Why is it important for me to be listening to what's going on tonight? Well, let's start at the beginning. And one of the things that Cape Assist talks about a lot is prevention. There's a story that we always tell. It's called the river story. And there's two people. They're walking along the edge of a river, and they see somebody fall off a cliff, and they fall into the river. So the two of them, they run down very quickly, and they try to get him out, you know, so that he doesn't drown. But then another person falls in. So now they're like, oh my gosh, but now there's two people. They're trying to get both people out of the river. Now there's another person falls in. Now they're too busy. So now they're making phone calls. They're trying to get as many people as they can to help them, you know, get these other people from falling, you know, drowning in the river. So now they've called ambulances, and they have a lot of other people, and they're all trying to save all these people that are falling off the cliff into the river. And one rescuer, he leaves, and they're like, hey, you know, we're really busy here. You can't leave. Where are you going? He says, I'm going up to the top of the cliff. I want to find out why people are falling in. And that's kind of what we want to do, is we want to find out, you know, what are some of the things that we might be able to do so that we don't have people falling into the river. So one of the things that we talked about is that youth don't really see the connection between, you know, using marijuana and something actually being harder than that. It seems like we've evolved into a world where we pop pills to cure everything. You know, we're tired, we can take a pill. We're hungry, we take a pill. We're sleepy, we take a pill. And that, you know, there's so many commercials on TV, and, you know, with prescription drugs, and, you know, doctors being prescribing them, and them being on national TV, they don't seem so bad. I think that kids are now, you get a little more desensitized, and they don't really hear about the, you know, the bad things that can happen to them. You know, the harmful effects of drugs, alcohol, and marijuana, that they're kind of desensitized because it's around them all the time. And they're not really informed about the high rates of addiction. They see them as safe ways. Safe ways to get high, because, you know, if a doctor prescribes it, and they're advertised everywhere, and my parents might take them, then it might be okay, and it might be safe for me to do. So we want to talk just about, it's funny because we have to talk about we talk about young people, and I want you to think about them, is that they know drugs are bad for them. So they take them for a lot of reasons, but they know that they're bad for them. They know that they're unhealthy. They know that they're illegal. They know that they have the possibility to kill them. They know people that have used them and have gotten addicted, and they've known people that have used them and died. So why do they still use? Why are they still using them? And as you can see, for a lot of reasons, and the guys talked about it too, is they're not seeing the end result. Like they said, they looked for the one the heroin that killed someone. They're like, oh, I'm going to take it, but if I'm going to take it differently, I'm not going to get hurt when I do it. There used to be an old commercial on TV that would say, kids don't want to grow up to be junkies, but they haven't made the connection sometimes that just them starting to try one of these things, and that trying to start in the first place might lead them not go down that trail to actually get started to take drugs if they just say no to begin with. I want to talk a little bit about the adolescent brain. I do love it. It's so interesting. It works really different. So if there are young people in the audience, I am not trying to not trying to say anything. It's just really your brains work a little bit differently than ours do. The adolescence is the most risky time for our children. There's a lot going on in their brain. So your brain stops growing about age 10, but it doesn't really stop developing and maturing until you're in your 20s. So you have a lot of brain systems in there, and they mature at different times. And the brain develops from the back to the front. And one of the first areas to develop, which is in the back, is the emotions. And they develop first. And then the frontal lobe up here in the front, this is where you make your decisions and you really think about long-term consequences and those kinds of things. They're the last thing to develop. So we talk about kids, we think of them about as being a race car. They have a really great engine, but their brakes don't work as well. So they experience a lot of their things in more extremes. So if you really think about it, if you think about your kids, I know I have 2 teenage girls. They experience higher highs and lower lows. I know sometimes my kids will come home and they'll be so upset, and I'll be like, what's wrong? And I would have thought the world was coming to the end. And sometimes for me, it doesn't seem like it's that big of a deal. They're also especially sensitive to emotional cues, and they're sensitive to what other people think. So if you think about your kids in the way that they act, that's what peer pressure comes in. They're worried about what other people are going to think about them. Us as adults, because we're older, we say, who cares what anybody else thinks about us? But, kids aren't there. They're not thinking that way. And they're especially sensitive to rewards. So adolescent decisions, just to think about them, they like an instant reward. Sometimes, when we're, as adults, sometimes we can save up for things. You're like, oh, we're going to save up for a car, and we save up for a long time. Kids would rather have a reward that's right away. They don't like to wait. They like the instant result. They focus on the benefits rather than the risks. And a lot of decisions that they make just are based on that they have not been around as long as us. They don't have all the experiences that we've been through. They don't know everything that they haven't done the mistakes or made the mistakes and done what we've been through. So a lot of that goes into play when they're making their decisions, and we have to think about that, when they're doing some of these things, that their decisions are based on the brain not being fully functional on the long-term effects and stuff. So adolescents are less likely than adults to consider future consequences of their actions. They're less likely than adults to plan ahead. They're less able than adults to control their impulses, and they're less able to consider the risks and the rewards of a decision. So sometimes when you think about when you're talking to your kids, you go pick up your kid, you're talking to them, and you find out that they went over to somebody's house and let's say they jumped off the roof into the swimming pool. You go pick them up and you say, what, were you crazy? What were you thinking? You could get hurt. You could do this. You could have broke your leg. You could have, you got to play soccer tomorrow. And they think of all these things that could have happened. You know, and the kids are saying, no, man, everybody was doing it. It looked like super fun, and they did it. They didn't think about all that, you know, afterthought we do. So you have to really think about that when you're talking to your kids, that they do think a little bit differently than we do. So we really can't change their brains, so we have to figure out ways that we have to just know that they're going to make decisions like that, and how can we work with it. One of the things that we can do, and I'm sure with all of you guys that are out here today are probably doing a bunch of them already, and it's just, you know, risk and protective factors. And so what it says is there are a lot of factors in a child's life that we can help with to help them, you know, have the possibility of, you know, for drug abuse, we can lessen it that way. So if we do risk factors, what we want to do is reduce risk factors in our child's life and increase factors, protective factors in their life. So risk factors are broken up into these 4 categories that you see behind us. Examples of risk factors could be like family conflict, a low commitment to school, or they could have friends that engage in problem behavior. Examples of protective factors could be a positive family dynamic, caring and support from teachers and staff, a positive sense of self. Sometimes we have to think about it. We may not be able to always change our risk factors. Say if I was a single mother living in a neighborhood that wasn't so safe, you know, like I might not be able to change that right away. I might not have the money to move out of an area where it's not that safe, but I can pad my kids and do the best I can with padding them with more protective factors. So I can make sure that after school that they have something to do, that they belong to sports, that they have neighbors that they can talk to, they have other grown-ups that they can talk to besides me, and that they can maybe do, you know, do volunteer work and feel like they're being helpful and that they're helping other people. So the thing that we would like to try to do is, the best way to help our kids succeed in life is to build assets. And the more that we can do to build assets, they'll help them stay away from risky behaviors. They're essentially the building blocks for human development. Out on the table, there's a handful of handouts. One of them is the Search Institute, which they have done a ton of information on developmental assets, and they have identified 40 of them that you can use to help your kids be more responsible and grow up being healthy and caring people. So they're broken into 2 categories. They're external ones. These are things that you can do that are actually in the environment that might have to do with their school or at home or their community. They help support, nurture, and empower them to set boundaries and expectations. Also, there are internal ones. There are attitudes and values and competencies that every child needs. One of those would be like placing a high value on helping other people. They're motivated to do well in school, and that they feel like they have a control over what happens to them. So we want to try to also build some other skills for our kids. As parents, we can help them do that. Like I said, many of these things we do without even thinking about it. We already know that our kids know that drugs are bad and know that they shouldn't use it, but we want to try to give them a current drug education, like coming out here tonight, just finding out what's going on, so that if something is going on in your neighborhood or in school or in the news or in the family, that you kind of know what's going on, that you're up and current on what's happening in the area. Also, try to, when you do talk to them, and I know that Ed had spoke about it, that try to give them, the truth. Let them know what's really happening. You don't want to try to use scare tactics. You don't want to say to them, if you use heroin, you're going to die. There are a handful of people that have used it many times and have not died. And kids need to know that. And if they find out that they think that we're like over dramatizing it, or we're trying to tell them that it might not happen, that they are absolutely going to die, that they may not believe us, and they may not want to talk to us when they really need us most. A lot of times too, they've also been desensitized of its harmful effects. because they do see it everywhere. They see it in the TV, they see it in the movies, internet, it's even in video games. Sometimes it's such commonplace that it kind of loses its wow factor. So we just want to make sure that we keep our lines of communication open. One of the things I always try to do with my own kids is just keeping the small conversation going. It's not that we always have to have this, when we go to have this talks with them, that we have to say, okay, we're going to have the big drug and alcohol talk, and we have all these things out, and we're going to show them and talk to them about it. It's just the little things all the time, just talking about them, like just little things that happen day to day. And if we just talk to them about what they're doing, what they're doing in school, what they like to do, what they're doing when they hang out with their friends, that they're going to talk to us when they have bigger problems, because we left that lines of communication open. And we also want to just teach them, a little bit about anger management skills and stress skills, because kids do have those things. How to diffuse anger. If they go out, if they try out for the baseball team and they're not chosen, how to diffuse that so that they're not upset. Stress management kits, so that kids don't, if they're studying for tests in school and they're so worried about getting good grades all the time that it's starting to worry them. They're the little things that might chip away and lead kids to maybe try something like drugs and alcohol to try to relieve those things. So what else can we do? Just make sure that we set clear standards and consequences concerning alcohol and drug use. Just to make sure your kids know where you stand. Sometimes we automatically think that, think drugs and alcohol are bad, that my kids would automatically assume that. And we can't do that. We just talked about a little bit about the brain. We got to make sure that they know exactly where we stand on things. To get to know your child's friends and their parents. Use them and talk to their parents too, and be helpful to each other. Just make sure that you're a good role model. Said stay informed on new trends and what's going on. Even just what the new apps are, and all the stuff that's on the internet and iPhones and all that things. And to make sure that you keep your lines of communication open, and to make sure that when we do talk to them, just to make sure that we listen too. If we start, if we start talking to them and they ask us a question and we start going off about, a huge thing or a big lecture, they're not going to listen to us. We need to, listen to their part of it too. And we always talk about it, Cape Assist, as the teachable moment. And like I said, it's just, if you're sitting together watching TV and something comes up on a TV show, that has something with, drugs or alcohol or anything that has a situation in it that you think that's important to your child, to talk to them about it. Just make a little conversation. Little conversations all the time in the long run are going to be a lot more helpful than you having that one big talk, once a year or once in a lifetime. So make sure that you try to just really keep your lines of communication open. Like I said, if you can talk about the small stuff. Hopefully, if something big happens, that they'll be able to come back to you and talk to you about it. If you need any help or you're unsure about anything or you have questions, please don't hesitate to call Cape Assist. That's what we're there for. It's so funny, we laugh because the name of our office is Cape Assist. You would be surprised at the amount of phone calls that we get on all kinds of things. And when you call the office, listen, we know, a lot of us have stood in the shoes of the questions that you're going to ask us. Don't feel weird or awkward. Call us, we'll help you. And if we can't help you, we will at least give you the next step so that you can find out to put you on your way. And sometimes it doesn't even have to be about drugs and alcohol, because that brings a whole other barrage of problems. So we know a lot of resources. Please, please don't hesitate to call us. We'll do whatever we can to help you out.